Yay.
All right, welcome back to the dungeon where we geek out on all things horror, thriller, mystery, and suspense. And we are having another repeat guest, Josh Millican. Josh, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Doing good, doing good. So, yeah, it's been about a year since you've been in the dungeon, but I think this is like your third time here.
I think so. You've been very gracious with your platform, and it's good to be back talking about my latest project.
All right, and yeah, we're gonna get into that. I read, but first I want to talk about this new publisher that you're affiliated with. What is it? Shortwave.
Shortwave, yeah. Founded by Alan Lastufska. I hope I'm not butchering his name.
That's all right. He's not here to defend himself, so.
I know, right? Poor guy. He founded Shortwave a couple years ago to publish his own book. I believe it's called Face the Night, and just had such a great time with it that he, decided to do it for other authors. And he launched the Killer VHS series last year with a couple of books. The first one was called Melonhead Mayhem by Alex Evanstein. Mm-hmm. And the second one was called Candy Cane Kills by Brian McCauley. Came out last December. And mine will be number 3. Okay. But yeah, Alan's great, and Shortwave has been great. They work with some of the best-known authors in the indie horror space, and I'm proud to be on their team. Okay. I'm still with Encyclopocalypse, though. I love those guys. Okay. And I've got another book coming out with them in November. It's a novelization. Mum on that for now, because we got plenty of other stuff to talk about. But
all right.
I'll be filling you in, and I'll be back for that one.
Excellent. Yeah, so all your previous books that you've been here to talk about, they're still available over in Encyclopocalypse, right?
Yeah, and on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, and, we're even getting in a few bookstores here and there.
That's good. That's good. Well, as you said, your book is coming out on June 25th, 2024, which is in about 2-3 weeks.
3 weeks,
from the time we're recording this. Now, you've already gotten some feedback and reviews and stuff from people like myself. I haven't written one yet, but that's why you're here on the show, because we're talking about it. But you've got some reviews and feedback from other people who read the book. It looks like it's another banger.
I can't be more thrilled with the reviews that I've been getting. Got about 10 ratings and 9 reviews on Goodreads at the time of recording. And I've just gotten some great feedback. Some people have just hit me up in DMs, letting me know that they really loved it, and I couldn't be more thrilled. I'm going to tell you, there's no small amount of pressure coming into a series that's already been established. Mm-hmm. I imagine it's like a director coming into a franchise that already has, a vibe that's been set and expectations that come along with it. So there was no small amount of apprehension for me in terms of whether or not this was going to be received in the same spirit as the first two. And I'm thrilled that so far it has been.
The Killer VHS series. Now, You talked about there's 2 books already published. Mm-hmm. You're number 3. Mm-hmm. And there's going to be 2 more books published later this year. Mm-hmm. So I'm gonna ask the obvious question right off the bat, get it out of the way. Do you have to read the first 2 books in order to understand your book?
Not at all, not at all. One of the critics at Horror Horror Obsessive or Horror Obsessed, I forget, I'm sorry. They said that the series is like a modern day Goosebumps for adults. And just like you don't have to read one Goosebumps to love another, you don't have to read the Killer VHS tapes in any specific order. They're all standalones. Okay. The common thread is that there is a VHS that plays some role in how the story unfolds. In the case of Melonhead Mayhem, there is a VHS tape that when you watch it, you it kind of summons the movie you just watched into your world. It's great. A lot of nods to Critters and humunculi horror of that ilk, if that's your thing. In Candy King Kills, we find out some important information on a camcorder that's discovered in a basement. So it's a great form of exposition. It's a really heart-wrenching scene, too. So some great stuff there. Now, in my case, I did something a little different. I took the Killer VHS concept kind of literally and made the VHS tape itself kind of the villain. Similar to the way the VHS tape is an extension of the villain in The Ring. Right. In this case, the VHS tape is really like almost its own character in and of itself.
Yeah, it's wild. A lot of comparisons have been done to The Ring. I would throw something else in there as far as like the way the book is set up. I would call it the Ring meets Pulp Fiction. You know how it's like in Pulp Fiction, you're following different groups of people, and it's not all in the same timeline. It's you're kind of jumping around in the timeline, but they're all interconnected.
Yes. That's something that I was actually playing kind of close to the vest. First of all, I don't think we've mentioned the name of it yet, which is Teleportasm. Here's the book with amazing art by Alex Volchik, who's done the art for the first two Killer VHS books as well. Yes, Teleportasm. I was kind of sitting on aspects of it that were really unique, but now that people are talking about them online, I don't think there's any reason why we can't talk about them here. In some ways, it could be called like a pseudo-anthology. I don't know if you remember in Mike Doherty's Trick or Treat, there are some standalone episodes, but there are through stories going through them. Pulp Fiction is another great example. In literature, you could compare it to something like The Martian Chronicles, which takes place in standalone chapters that kind of inform one another. So yeah, it's a little bit tricky in that sense. It's a little bit experimental, but like you said, it does not stick to a linear time frame. Jumps forward into time and back into time, and it shows repercussions from several different perspectives. There is a through story that is there's like a single night that takes place over 4 chapters that are interspersed, and at a certain point it does kind of start to flow chronologically, even though it jumps about a year into the future at each new chapter.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but I thought it was really neat that there's you got like at least a half of the, I counted 8 different groups of people, but it's like each one of them. I mean, the first thing, the common denominator is that goddamn tape, and then secondly, each one has their, they may be occurring in different time frames, in different places, different people, but they're those strings just kind of go in and out, and at points they cross, and there may be something later on that was referred to at a previous chapter, which I thought was really cool.
There's only really one chapter that kind of could be a standalone, and that's the Welcome to Dead World chapter. I think that informs enough at the beginning where, you know, it really is kind of like its own, it's almost like a book within a book, you know, in some ways. If they were going to make a movie out of Teleportasm, they'd really have two options. They could make Teleportasm, or they could make Welcome to Dead World. You can almost make two completely separate movies from what's in there. But yeah, every other chapter is kind of informed by the chapters that came before them. There's no way you could read them out of order and kind of experience the story as it's meant to be experienced.
And you mentioned, it's like, I think for me the high point of the book was Ophelia's, which is the chapter you just referred to.
Yeah, Welcome to Dead World. Thank you. A lot of people have given me some great feedback about that chapter.
So that was pretty wild. Because it starts out as you know, she's at a party,
right?
And so, you know, the party setting itself is like, okay, it harks back to the other chapters. We got this tape. Hey, who's the first person who's gonna watch this tape? Blah blah blah. And it's this big party trick, and she teleports somewhere else.
Yeah, things don't work out for her, and you know, what I love about that chapter is it really kind of breaks it all open in terms of turning it from, like, you know, a self-contained experience into like a whole universe. You know, all of a sudden the options are a little bit limitless, and that's kind of the only chapter that has like this really expansive worldview. So yeah, I'm just really happy that people are reacting to it so well.
And the wild thing is like you ultimately find out the fate of some of the characters that you read about in the other chapters.
Right.
So it's like, it's, to me, it from that point on, it was like, you know, you watch a TV series, and especially like, you know, I'll say like Game of Thrones or something like that. And you watch a whole series and you know how everything ends, you know who lives and who dies, and then you go back and you watch the series again from episode 1, and it's like, it's just a whole new set. It's like, you're gonna die in about 3 months.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, that's awesome.
If only you knew what was gonna happen to you.
Right. I'm glad to hear you say that, because I really do hope that, like, by the end, there are enough surprises that it makes you want to go, like, hey, was there a hint of this early on that was kind of missed? And there probably was. You know, I tried to leave breadcrumbs all the way through. You know, just one more thing about the Dead World chapter. That really kind of marks the tonal turning point of Teleportasm. I would say it's very funny until that point, and it continues to be funny, but at that point it really goes into much darker territory thematically and emotionally.
Right.
You know, and that's when it becomes something completely different. You know, I like how you compared it to Game of Thrones. Something else I like to compare it to is like the X-Files, where you can watch like an entire season of the X-Files, right? And a lot of them are standalones, but there are 4 or 5 chapters that all relate to the central conspiracy. So, you know, that there is like a through thread when you watch the entire season, and then you go back and you put pieces together and things like that. So yeah, it was a really fun way to write, and I gotta thank Alan for kind of allowing me to do something crazy. The other Killer VHS books are much more of your traditional narrative that takes place over basically just like a night or two. And Teleportasm really kind of breaks the mold in that sense.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, it got, not to get into spoilers, but the end is like, you know, I don't know how many years or decades or centuries is shot into the future, but yeah, there's no destroying this damn tape, and people have tried.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, it's out of our hands at this point. Yeah, and that's kind of the point of the story, is kind of how like big things can have like kind of weird, you know, seemingly innocuous beginnings, you know, because no one thinks in the beginning of the book that they're holding something in their hands that could have, you know, universal repercussions, but they certainly do.
Right, right. So I mean, you start out with And a lot of these groups are like at least 3 to 4 people. So you start off with Barry, Frankie, Snaps, and Lars. And so those 4 characters are sort of like, I don't know, they're not like the major bulk of the book, but they're the 4 characters that we keep going back to.
Yeah, they're like the Scooby-Doo gang. They're like a modern-day Scooby-Doo gang.
Right. And then everything else that kind of goes from... So, and then you have all these other ones. You have these 2 nurses. You have these people at a party. You have people at a video store.
Kids in a treehouse.
Yeah, kids in a treehouse. I can't imagine. And if you could like just walk us through, like, because I picture, you know, that you've seen that meme where it's like all these sort of like a police billboard thing, or it's like and all these pictures and all these yards of string going all over the place. It's just like, hey, this ties into this and this that. How do you go from what I guess essentially is a blank piece of paper to all these characters, all these groups of people, and how I mean, besides the tape, how it all kind of connects, how their lives connect to somebody else's life that we talked about or got a whisper of in another group of people.
Mm-hmm. You know, it was just the way it all came together, and you know, the process with this was really unlike anything I'd ever written before. Teleportasm is about 30,000 words long, but I kid you not, I wrote 100,000 words to get to those 30,000. There are complete chapters, maybe even 4 complete chapters, that I just let go. You know, and these were chapters that fit with the story. You know, that I just felt ultimately weren't necessary. You know, I had this other path going, and then there were chapters that I felt were kind of weaker than other chapters, and I made the decision to, you know, change them and reorder them a little bit. So it was really like a year-long process, you know, coming together with so many different ideas and whittling them down. And, you know, it's almost like, you know, how you hear a lot of writers say, like, you know, I'm just a vessel, I don't know where these ideas come from. It really did feel that way. It almost felt like I was discovering how all these pieces fit together. Like I did not start with the first chapter, the first paragraph, knowing at the end that it was going to be this, you know, multi-layered conspiracy involving all kinds of potentially paranormal concepts and theories. It's nuts. You're right. It's all over the place, and I just feel really kind of lucky that I was able to hone it all together. You know, part of the great thing about working with Shortwave is the support that they give throughout the process. You know, I had an editor look at it to really kind of make sure that the language was how I wanted. I had someone giving creative input, like, you know, I'm not sure why the character's doing this, or I don't quite understand that. So, you know, I had a chance to kind of like address these things. We had beta readers, we had sensitivity readers, you know, we had Alan and I worked really close because, like I said, you know, he had established the tone, and we wanted to work together to make sure that I was keeping the tone consistent. So it couldn't have been done in a vacuum. And as proud as I am for the work I did in it, it's really it was a collaborative process with Alan in just a tremendous number of ways.
Wow, that's cool. So,
yeah.
All right. So when you were writing the book, were you given any hints, or were you privy to anything that the other authors were doing in the series of the books?
You know, I was given some hints, and it's kind of funny that you asked that, because I think it's okay to reveal now. If you look at the cover of Teleportasm, you'll see that there are these VHS tapes up here stacked on top of the TVs. Those are actually VHS tapes of the previous books. So up there you've got Melonhead Mayhem and Candy Cane Kills. You also have a tape for Cicadas, which is the next book in the Killer VHS series, and you also have a tape up there for Candy Cane Kills Again, which is the sequel to Candy Cane Kills. It's been announced already, but when this art was commissioned, it actually wasn't even announced yet, so that was like a super secret thing that we put in there. But yeah, there are some connections to the other ones in that sense, and I also know, I think it's okay to talk about this, that there are plans to, after the first 5 have been released, to package them together and sell them as a set. So this will definitely be something that you'll want to have, and I love it. It's fun for collectors of media, collectors of horror books, and yeah, I'm just thrilled to be a part of it.
That's cool. And yeah, so let's just run down the books again, so people know. It's like Melonhead Mayhem, written by
Alex Ebenstein, or Alec Ebenstein.
Ebenstein, yep.
Yeah.
And that was that's already out. It was according to their website release schedule was came out in July of last year. Then Candy Cane Kills by Brian McCauley. I think came out November 14th of last year. Yeah,
and Brian, he and I met because we were both members of the Los Angeles chapter of the Horror Writers Association. Okay. And I found out that he was working on Candy Cane Kills. I'm not sure if it was before it was announced, but it was definitely before he was finished. And I was like, man, I gotta get in on that series. So it's actually through him that I contacted Alan, and if it wasn't for that connection early on, I might not have gotten in. So I feel very lucky. You know, now the Killer VHS series is so popular. I mean, good luck pitching to Alan now. I think he's, basically closed the door until 2026. So wow. Yeah, Brian McCauley really is a great guy, and Candy Cane Kills is a great book.
That's cool. And he's coming back again to write that book 5, which is Candy Cane Kills Again. Again. That's coming out in November of this year. And then the one coming after you is Cicada by Tanya Pell. Yeah. It's coming out September 24th. Now is the Candy Cane, I don't know if you know this or whatever, is the Candy Cane Kills like a bookend? It was like, okay, well it was book 2, it wasn't the first one. Right. So I'm just wondering if there's like a sort of like these VHS movies where there's a bookend or something that kind of.
I don't think in this case. I think it's just sort of the way it turned out. I'm not sure if there are plans to do sequels to any of the other ones at this time. I mean, there are so few of them. I think it's just kind of the way it turned out. But yeah, Candy Cane Kills, from what I understand, it'll pick up right where the first one left off, so that's a lot of fun. That's one of my favorite things about horror movie sequels, is where you literally find out what happened the very next minute. So that'll be a lot of fun. And I haven't read Cicadas, but I've read the synopsis, and it sounds great. Something about a drive-in movie screening, horror film festival. You got to imagine this is happening while some cicada horde, giant super hordes are emerging. I mean, great premise, right? You can go a million places from there, so I'm in.
Yeah, and have you heard about these venomous flying spiders that's like migrating through northeast U.S.? I'm waiting for some horror shit coming up with that.
I mean, yeah, I guess we have we had murder hornets over here on the West Coast a couple of years ago, but I'll take those fuckers over flying, stinging spiders any day.
Really?
Lord help us.
Well, Josh, do you have, as you probably know, I ask any author that comes on to read like a passage or like a teaser from their book. Do you have something that, or maybe your favorite section, or?
Yeah, I thought it'd be fun maybe for me to read a little bit from chapter 4, which is, or chapter 5, which is Murder Tapes Aren't Real. So,
okay, so like the group of girls, like the craft,
Exactly. This was very influenced by the craft. So, and just all you really need to know is that this takes place in the world where this VHS tape that causes teleportation exists, but people don't really know a lot about it yet. There are a lot of rumors involved, and rumors are kind of overlapping. So I'll just read a few pages of this. Maybe you can kind of like give me a signal if you want me to wind it down, or I'll just keep reading, and maybe I'll get through the whole thing.
Okay.
So chapter 5. Murder tapes aren't real. Have you heard about the videotape that gets you high? That's old news, Sandy, Veronica replies. Really? Sandy was disappointed. You tell the story then. The Black Dahlias, a ragtag group of young women from Santa Clarita High, were holding their weekly meeting. They met in the small cemetery behind Morningstar Mortuary on Fridays at midnight. There was no set agenda or itinerary of any kind. Veronica, Sandy, Carrie, and Vivian were bound by their love of all things creepy. Music, art, film, culture, everything was on the table and nothing was taboo. There was something unusual about the Dahlias that seemed to border on supernatural. Classmates sometimes referred to them as witches and Satan worshippers, but the quartet enjoyed their lives on the fringes. Ironically, being creepy made the Dahlias minor celebrities on and off campus. Holding weekly meetings in a graveyard may have seemed too on point, but the dreary expanse offered solitude from prying eyes. Sitting among the headstones, illuminated by candlelight, they were free to partake in pilfered bottles of red wine while puffing on vape pens. They were queens of this spooky domain. Lately, they'd become infatuated with urban legends and creepypastas. On nights like this, they'd compete with one another to tell the best news stories. The tape that gets you high is an analog narcotic that's more powerful than any other drug on the market, Veronica explained. It was engineered by a renegade chemist and an ex-hacker in North Hollywood. At first, they only shared it with their friends, but it became so popular they turned it into a business. There's a secret crash pad in the valley where people watch the tape on loop all day long. Is that true? Carrie asked. That's what I've heard, Veronica said. I'd love to find that place, Carrie said. Veronica, Sandy, and Vivian all rolled their eyes at Carrie. She started sniffing glue back in junior high and graduated to smoking pot in high school. Now in her senior year, Carrie seemed willing to sample anything and everything she could get her hands on. Of course, sitting in a house getting high all day sounded fun to her. Whatever, Veronica said. The point is, the tape that gets you high is old news. Well, that's not very scary, Vivian complained. She was the darkest of the bunch. Gothic to her core. Kids at school called her Morticia. Well, I haven't even told you the scariest part yet, Veronica said. This analog drug doesn't just get you addicted, it gets you super addicted. So what? Vivian responded. So, Vivian, what do you think's going to happen to these video junkies when they can't get their fix anymore? They're going to go insane and take to the streets like Jeff the Killer. Okay, that's pretty scary, Sandy admitted. Yeah, Carrie agreed. Vivian still seemed underwhelmed. It's a decent story, Veronica, but like you said, it's old news. Well, what have you got? Veronica countered. Vivian never backed down from a challenge. She blew a vape cloud and asked, have you heard of murder tapes? The night seemed to darken as though clouds drifted over the moon. When rustled the leaves in the trees, Veronica, Sandy, and Carrie suddenly felt chilly. What's a murder tape? Veronica asked. Exactly what it sounds like. You watch the tape and then you die. Like in The Ring? Sandy asked. Way different, Vivian replied. It doesn't take 7 days and there's no ghost involved. Here's what happens. Veronica, Sandy, and Carrie leaned in. You arrive home and there's something wrapped in brown paper inside your mailbox. It's addressed to you, but there's no return address. You open it and it's an unlabeled VHS tape. You think, well, this is odd, but whatever. You toss it aside and go on with your day. You try to relax, but your mind keeps drifting back to the videotape. Curiosity starts needling you. Curiosity and fear. What if a stalker sent it, you wonder? What if it's some sort of blackmail? You think about all the terrible things you've done in your life and shudder. Soon you can't resist the urge to watch it any longer. You insert the tape, and with trembling fingers, you press play. Like a master of suspense, Vivian had the other Dahlias hanging on her every word. Even the trees seemed enthralled. What happens then? Carrie asked. Once you press play, it's already too late. You're dead. Well, how does it kill you? Sandy asked while tucking herself into a ball. It makes you do terrible things. Some people throw themselves out windows. Some people entomb themselves inside brick walls. Some people dismember themselves. And sometimes the aftermath is so horrific, cops can't even tell what happened. How can you dismember yourself? Carrie asked in disbelief. I don't know, Carrie, Vivian shot back. Maybe you should give it a try. Tension between Vivian and Carrie had been running high. Rumors had gone around that Carrie let Vivian's ex-boyfriend Russell digitize her under the bleachers during PE. Carrie swore it wasn't true, but also said it shouldn't matter because Vivian and Russell broke up 6 months ago. Veronica and Sandy couldn't tolerate dissent in the ranks and had previously brokered a fragile truce between the feuding Dahlias. Carrie and Vivian agreed to move on, but talk of murder tapes was clearly causing emotions to flare. Tut, tut, Veronica scolded Vivian. You know I demand decorum at these get-togethers. Anyway, Vivian continued, a single murder tape can take out a whole room full of people. You heard about what happened to those kids in Granada Hills, right? The ones who supposedly killed each other in a treehouse? Murder tapes. Where do murder tapes come from? Sandy asked. Vivian shrugged. What do you think? I'll just leave it right there.
Yeah. That's good.
Thank you.
There's all right, so there's quite a few hints.
It alludes to things that have already happened and hints at things that you'll find out about in several chapters down the line.
Yeah, and it's not like these girls were there or they knew these kids. It's like, okay, well, we heard it through, like, you know, it was a creepypasta that was written about it or something like that.
Well, just to get people a little more titillated without giving anything away, one of the four, when the girls each go home that night, one of the four of them does come home to find a blank VHS tape in her mailbox. So I'll just leave it at that.
Yep.
Just leave it at that.
Yep. And I gotta ask, maybe I'm just too fucking old, but to digitize? Is that a new thing? It's like, is that a TikTok thing? What the fuck is that? I've never heard of that before.
I think I heard it on, of all things, maybe like Hannah Montana or something like that way back in the day. And I'm sure it's something that writers slipped by the censors because it was on some sort of like young adult thing. And it was like some high school girl going like, so-and-so started a rumor that I let Russell digitize me under the bleachers. And it was one of those things where you kind of listen to it for a second, digitize? And then you're like, oh, okay. You know, because at first and then you realize, and it's funny too, because you, having read the book, know that they're not the first ones to kind of use that term. Right. So it's kind of like a running joke.
Okay. Well, I want to, if you don't mind, I just want to read one paragraph from your, it was basically your message at the end of the book where you're giving your thank yous and stuff. It's like, if teleportation has a message, it's to appreciate the friends we have. Never let trivial bullshit wreck solid bonds. Keep in touch, because things that happened years ago may still be very close to our hearts. Connections to the past are important, helping us realize how much we've grown and how far we've come. So I think that's a really good, that was a good thing to end the book in. That's in your thank yous and stuff at the end of the book. Right.
Well, thank you so much for saying that. You know, this group that we talked about, the Scooby Gang, Barry, Frankie, Snaps, and Lars, they kind of remind me of myself and my old friends, you know, when we just kind of got out of college and weren't really sure what to do next. And those are really kind of like pure, happy friendships. And yeah, things come along, usually drugs or, you know, relationship drama that kind of screws everything up. And it's always a shame because I think that Barry, Frankie, Snaps, and Lars, if they had known what would happen in the future, they all might have chosen to just enjoy the friendship they had. It would have been a much less interesting story, but they all might have been a lot happier if they had just enjoyed the connections they had without looking for something new.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Josh, thank you so much for coming back to the dungeon.
Shit, thank you, man. I love that you've been a supporter of my work since day one, since I was a debut novelist. And I couldn't be more thrilled to be releasing Teleportasm this summer. And I can't thank you enough for constantly allowing me to appear on your platform and talk about my work with your viewers.
Thank you. No, yeah, it's been a pleasure for me too. So, yeah, and so if people want to find out more about you, your work, how to order your books.
Twitter's the best way. Follow me on Twitter at Josh_Millican. I'll get you all the information you need.
Excellent. And for those of you watching the show or the video, you can follow me on all my social link shits. It's in my link tree. All the links are there. And if you want to help me do more of this and do it better, I have a Patreon thing. So exclusive stuff. In fact, there are 2 videos over there right now with authors that you're not going to see until like August at the earliest. But if you go to our Patreon page, and it's like what, $3 a month, whatever, you get to see them now. So you'll be the first on your block to see some really cool authors over there. Books are coming out. But Joshua, your book's coming out in 3 weeks. So so I'm gonna get your ass on our YouTube channel like within a few days of this recording. So
I appreciate the hell out of you, man.
All right. Well, thank you so much, and that is it for us. We are out of here until next time.
Good night.